Hello and welcome on into our Week 9 review on the PHFL NFL podcast. Myself, Adam, as always, joined by Kai and by Mikey. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Have we enjoyed the NFL this weekend?
Same as always, yes.
Always enjoy it. Don't think this week was quite as dramatic as weeks gone by, but it's never boring.
Surely, as an Eagles fan, it was very enjoyable because you didn't lose this week.
Hey, we don't often lose now.
Well, your record suggests otherwise, but we'll see.
I say now, meaning not in the past few weeks.
Yes. So we'll quickly move on from me slagging off the Eagles, even though they didn't even play this week, to the Green Bay San Francisco game. We can get that over with early so that Kai doesn't have to listen to me and Mikey's Green Bay chat. Green Bay won that game 34-17 on Thursday Night Football. There was worries, I think, that it was going to be postponed because of COVID, but it ended up happening. San Francisco had no players because of COVID. Green Bay lost a few of their players because of COVID, but Aaron Jones came back. Certainly looked the best running back in that backfield for Green Bay. Rodgers, threw 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He seemed to be fairly good passer rating of 147.2. They didn't really get on the San Francisco side of the ball their running game properly going. As someone who picked up Jermichael Hasty in both fantasy leagues we're in, his 4 attempts for 3 yards was not appreciated. Mikey, do you have anything to add?
I'm pretty sure you also had Jordan Reed in fantasy. Two targets, 1 reception for 3 yards.
Yeah.
A nice whole 1.3 points for you in fantasy.
Needless.
I remember, just before we go into the game, I remember waking up on Friday morning. I stayed up for some of the game. Woke up Friday morning, checked the fantasy score, and I was like, oh my God, Adam, you had like 2 players playing and you were on like 4.3 points or something like that.
Needless to say, I did not win my matchup this week.
You did not. I think that's back-to-back weeks we've not broke 100 yet. If I'm
no need to talk about that, Mikey.
Anyway, we'll
Adam didn't break 80
stuff
this week.
Yeah.
73 points.
Yeah.
73.
Obviously, the worry at the start of the game was Aaron Jones not being 100%, but I think the first drive they ran often with Aaron Jones, put him in the game straight away. I won't go on it too long, obviously, because it does feel like a while ago this game was played. But Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he played like lights. I don't think he was phenomenal. I don't think he stole headlines, but it just shows how good a quarterback he is when you think that and he's still throwing for 300 plus yards and 4 touchdowns. Do you know what I mean? It was just a vintage Aaron Rodgers performance. Nice to see other receivers not named Devontae Adams with a touchdown. Valdez-Scantling. Hopefully we'll start to see some of our offensive weapons become fit again, fully fit, especially in the running back room. But yeah, clinical performance. Move on to next week for me, pretty much.
Yep, finally getting that 49ers monkey off of our back as Green Bay Packers fans there, because they kind of embarrassed us last season. I know they weren't full strength, but still...
We'll take it.
Exactly, we certainly will.
Say not full strength as if maybe they'd let 1 or 2 out. There was guys in that team, I think they just made up their name and chucked them in.
The boy James did not bad for 9 receptions, 184 yards and a touchdown. I wish I'd put him in the fantasy team, but...
I think he ended up with one of the highest scoring wide receiver performances this week, aside from Devontae Adams.
Yeah, it was certainly, perhaps they found someone there as what their third, fourth, fifth choice behind Bourne, Ayuk, Samuel, whoever else they want to play when they're actually all fit. So
on the 49ers side of the ball, though, I think even though they've lost and their record, I think that's them either at 500 or below 500 for the first time this season.
4 and 5, yeah.
Yeah, they. I'm going to give massive credit to Kyle Shanahan. I think what he's doing through all these injuries and all these problems, navigating his team obviously through COVID as well. I think it's been nothing short of amazing that they're still 4 and 5 when they could be a lot worse. When you've seen teams deal with injuries and struggle a lot, I think it's credit to him and to that organisation is just how good he is as a coach.
Totally agree with you there. And when this is a fully fit 49ers side, possibly with a different quarterback, not Mullins, not Garoppolo. I've had this point before they might be moving on. This could be a very dangerous team, and to be honest, a very dangerous division. That could be. If it's not already the best division in football, it's certainly up there.
Nick Mullins again. As Mikey says, he obviously watches the show, and he's another good performance this week.
Oh yeah, we'd love to have Nick Mullins on, just not Jimmy Garoppolo. He's too handsome for us. We don't want him to be compared
Exactly.
to us. That's the problem. Moving on from one of the best divisions of football to one of the worst, the New York Giants were playing the Washington football team. Kai's looking at me like I've just killed his
You've
child.
managed in probably less than 10 minutes to slag the Eagles and slag their division, and the Eagles aren't playing.
I know. But the Giants did win 23 points to 20. I was speaking to Kai just before the show, and I actually quite enjoyed watching the game. From the outset, like to begin with, I thought, oh, this is not going to be a fun game to watch, but it was a fairly fun game to watch the highlights of, and live as well, obviously. 23 points to 20, as I say, the Giants beat Washington. The major talking point, I think we can all say, was the Kyle Allen injury. Which
that wasn't pleasant.
It was not nice to look at, and it was.
I mean, they didn't even show it the first time, did they? They just said, "Look, we're looking to try and see how bad this is," and then about 10 minutes later, they paused it and said, "We're going to show you this once."
Yeah.
And I wish I hadn't watched.
No, it was weirdly kind of eerily similar to the same sort of situation. Well.
I thought it looked the same as Dax.
It was about the same point of the field as happened to Alex Smith a couple of years ago.
I suppose
then, Mikey, you're going to have to help me here. You're better with the history of the NFL. The quarterback who injured himself similarly to Alex Smith several years ago for the Washington football team. I can't remember his name now.
Oh, God.
Aye, I've forgotten it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but there were similarities between Smith's and this other quarterback's injury back then, and now Kyle Allen, not quite leg breaking, but certainly ankle destroying. It looked like. Yes. So poetically, Alex Smith came back on the field, and I mean, he looked okay to begin with, and then threw a couple of really bad interceptions toward the end of the game.
One of which wasn't even close.
No, we were talking about it during the game, Kai, and we were like, wait, he was so far away from one of his receivers that we thought it must have been a Washington player.
I thought it was like a really good throw to a Washington receiver, and I went, oh no, he's wearing the wrong colour.
Bullet of a pass right to the defender. On the,
I'll defend Alex Smith to the high heavens, and that those were stupid, but the way I seen it, almost similar to soccer, if you want to call it, on an American football podcast.
Let's use football for come on.
If I'm on a team and I'm losing 1-0 and it's coming to the final few minutes, I would rather lose 2-0 knowing that I was going gung-ho for it than not doing it at all. So I think that's kind of what happened with those interceptions near the end. They knew that they had to do something. Didn't work out for them. So fair play to Alex Smith for trying and kind of throwing caution to the wind to try and get the win. But yeah, 3 interceptions for the day, even though he didn't start as a quarterback, doesn't look too good.
He didn't look comfortable, I don't think, in the pocket. I think he's still very worried, especially coming back for that injury. He doesn't want to get hit.
Yeah, it's hard not to, obviously, after everything that happened.
But it's not exactly what you want from your quarterback. You want him to be able to stand strong in the pocket, and even if he's not getting hit, still be able to. But as soon as there's any pressure at all, he seems to be running away. Understandably, as you say, after that horrific injury. But yeah, on the Giants side of the ball, I was actually fairly impressed. See if this team's fully fit. Okay, like they've got a young offensive line. At one point, they were playing 3 rookies on it. I think it could only improve. They've got Barkley coming back next season. Ingram, if he plays as well as Ingram could play. They've got the talent outside. Maybe they could do some more pace in wide receiver. I think this Giants team are actually quite good because they've most of their losses have been in 1-possession games.
Yeah, I think me and Mikey were discussing this not last week, potentially the week before, and we might have had a discussion off air.
It was
talking about it.
Before the Bucs
was it before the Bucs game?
Yeah.
We were talking about how many games the Giants have lost by like 1 possession or by like single figure points, and there's so many games that were like right on a knife edge. This one obviously went their way, but they played the Cowboys, it was right on a knife edge. They played a few other games where it was maybe a field goal that beat them, or a turnover or something like that. The Eagles one actually, yeah. So, and I think if they, like you say, I think if they keep everyone fit, they managed to get a bit of a groove going from the start, because I think part of their issue this season was they started really badly, and it's hard to kind of claw it back when momentum isn't going your way. Momentum's probably one of the biggest things. But yeah, definitely agree. I would say that there's probably positive things for years to come with the Giants. And
Yeah.
I think, actually, you've probably said this before, Mikey, Daniel Jones has never had all of his offensive weapons fit at the same time. And I think that's still the case now.
He's never played a snap with Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and Evan Engram all on the field together. Not once.
But he has had Alfred Morris, so what's the problem there? Because Morris is clearly a much higher quality running back than Saquon.
Listen, I know it's not Saquon Barkley figures that you're getting, but it's not fantasy relevant if anybody's looking for a New York Giants running back. But I mean, Wayne Gallman and Morris went for combined about 130 yards on only maybe 23 attempts by the looks of it.
Yeah.
One touchdown for Wayne Gallman as well. I mean, it's not what you want as a Giants fan without Saquon Barkley, but it could be a lot worse when you're thinking about the rush game with the Giants. Daniel Jones is obviously a really, really good rusher as well. Only had 4 rushing yards in this game, but there's parts there, as Kai said, to churn out some wins, and it's not happening right now. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, obviously. So,
well, you never know in that division, Mikey.
Well, yeah, but it's just that kind of point in the season now where you think, do we push and try and gel this team together and get some wins and get some confidence for next season, or do we try and get a top 5 draft pick?
Yeah, on you go.
I was going to say the rushing game could be worse. It could be Washington's rushing game, who had a combined 37 yards.
Yeah, as the Antonio Gibson owner, that was fairly disappointing. However, he did get a touchdown. He did have a few receptions for Antonio Gibson. Obviously, I think one of the talking points we haven't mentioned, which we should, was that comical fumble from Antonio Gibson with the first play of the game for Washington, and it bounced for about 30 yards. There's about 10 folk jumping on top of it. I
saw someone put the Benny Hill music over the top of it.
That's what was in my head when I was watching it. All I could think of was that. Yeah. But I'll be honest. I got the 20 points for the 20 points. The 2 points for the 20 yards for the reception. So I'll take it. But we've talked far too long about the Giants against Washington. That is longer than anyone needs to talk about that. But we can move on to two teams who are with very good winning records going into this game. This is Chicago Bears at the Tennessee Titans. Kai was looking at this game for us. The Titans ended up only winning by 7 points, 24 points to 17. How? Because when I saw that, Chicago hadn't really done anything.
Yeah. As much as the scoreline makes it look tight, it was never really in doubt for the Titans. I think they were up 24-3 early in the fourth quarter. So they managed to almost throw it away Falcons style. But I think they just kind of coasted through the last quarter and maybe took the foot off the gas a wee bit.
The Bears didn't score a point.
Terms.
The Bears didn't score a point until the fourth quarter.
Aye. Scored a field goal.
Yeah,
at
field
the
goal
fourth
at the start,
quarter,
yeah.
And then kicked on from there, I think.
Yeah.
Well, kicked on to still lose.
I don't think there was a huge amount for you to talk about, but I have some stats for you, Kai, and then a question for you, having watched this game. So,
okay.
The Bears' offense, total points per game, they're ranked 28th in the league. Now, just for everyone who doesn't know, you should all know, there are only 32 teams in this league. So they rank 28th in total points per game, 29th in total yards, 21st in pass yards per game, and dead last in rushing yards per game.
They're not, they're not very good on the ground. In fact, they're not very good on offense either.
Is it time for Trubisky to come back?
Well, he did.
Yeah.
For one snap last week, and then got injured
and
went off again. I don't know. I quite like Nick Foles. I think there's probably some
Eagles
sort of like
saying
I was going to say
like Nick Foles.
I think there's probably some sort of like sentimental value there with Nick Foles, considering he's gone down in Eagles folklore. I didn't think Nick Foles actually played that badly. He ended the game with 335 yards and 2 touchdowns. He kind of rallied the troops a wee bit, like I said, in the fourth quarter. He targeted 8 different receivers, so he was throwing the ball all over the shop. But the worrying thing I would say for the Bears was they only converted 2 third downs the whole game.
Yep.
So when it kind of goes down to the wire, are not very good.
No. And I think the reason his stat line looks so good is because it was garbage time and they were just thrown to try and get back in the game. And the Tennessee Titans were more than happy to concede short throws into the middle of the field. You know, like they weren't going to get beaten over the top. They were just happy for them to dink and dunk. You know,
Way through the middle.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say is the Bears are in the position they're in terms of their record and where they are in the division because of their defense. I would say. I have a stat now to hit back at you. I don't know if you have it, Adam. So AJ Brown's 40-yard touchdown in the second quarter was only the third receiving touchdown the Bears have allowed this season to a wide receiver.
I didn't know that. That's an impressive stat.
So 2 receiving touchdowns through 9 weeks was the lowest in the NFL, as I'm sure you can imagine. But going into week 10, they've only allowed 3 receiving touchdowns.
2 wide receivers. That's impressive.
2 wide receivers, which is I was amazed by that.
Yeah, that is very good.
But in terms of the Titans, I think they just kind of bounced back from what was quite a poor few weeks. They probably slipped back a wee bit, so I think it was quite important they came back and got the win. AJ Brown's starting to kind of find his feet again, coming out his injury. He had his second 100+ yard game this season. In terms of other receivers, Corey Davis, who had a very, very big week last week, and we were all anticipating doing quite well this week, had 3 targets, but didn't catch any of them.
A big goose egg, a big 0.
And the Titans in general only had 250 yards of total offense, but they were pretty efficient with it.
Yeah.
Mr. Efficient himself, Ryan Tannehill.
Exactly.
But yeah, coming out of that, the Titans obviously head to play the Colts tonight, Thursday Night Football, which will be a big game in that division. And then the Bears obviously play the Vikings, which is a big divisional matchup as well, especially for you guys.
Well, Kai, talking about the Vikings, you were also looking at that game where the Vikings were, like that one.
There we go.
The Vikings were at home to the Detroit Lions, 34 points to 20. Minnesota won that game. Give us your quick 30-second summary of it.
It wasn't a very good game. Dalvin Cook is very good. No.
Do we even need 30 seconds? That is it, isn't it? It's Dalvin Cook.
It's like the Dalvin Cook show again. 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for nearly 50 yards. Like, the Vikings are solely reliant on Dalvin Cook right now. I would even say like Justin Jefferson's kind of fallen out the picture again. I had a couple of exciting weeks, and then he's kind of just gone back to doing his thing without really catching the headlines.
To be honest, they've not really needed to be passing it a lot, have they? Let's be honest.
No, everything's been on the ground. Irv Smith. It's hard for a Scottish guy to say that. Probably had the most efficient game ever. 2 receptions, 10 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Nearly as efficient as some of Mike Evans' games earlier in the season. I was looking at Dalvin Cook's stats so far this season. So in 2020, he's played in 7 games because he was injured for a couple. He's had 144 rushing attempts and 12 touchdowns. In the last 5 seasons, Frank Gore has played 71 games, had 954 rushing attempts, and only scored 9 touchdowns.
That's probably because Frank Gore can't run far enough.
That's true, but I think Dalvin Cook's an unbelievable talent. Unbelievable. And actually, see, to be fair, Alexander Mattison and behind him is actually one of the most
had a good game.
One of the most efficient runners of the football as well. So like they've got unbelievable 1-2
I think it's also credit to Vikings O-line as well. How well they're doing to create these gaps for Dalvin Cook. But Dalvin Cook right now in the league, how many? I think he's only played 5 of the Vikings' 8 games. Is that right?
It said here in my stats 7, but I'm not quite sure how true that is.
He's first in rushing yards in the league, first in rushing touchdowns, first in rushing yards per game, first in touchdowns, first in points scored, second in yards from scrimmage, and second in yards after contact. And he's missed 3 games through injury.
It's quite good, isn't he?
That was what we spoke about before we came on here. That I was going to say I had 2 outlandish claims of the week. One of them isn't really an outlandish claim, so you don't need to hit the music. But Dalvin Cook.
I don't have to hit the music. So
Dalvin Cook will win the rushing title this year. I think he's going to beat the likes of Derrick Henry, etc. I don't, even though he's missed 3 games through injury, it's hard to see anybody else. I don't think this is going to stop either. I think this quality of Dalvin Cook is just going to continue. And who knows, they could be a wild card dark horse.
Well, that's what I was about to ask, because one of the questions I was going to have is, of the teams who aren't currently in playoff position, who do you think is most likely to get in there? So teams like the Cleveland Browns and Indianapolis Colts aren't actually in the playoffs at the moment at 5-3, but I'm thinking about someone who's maybe got a less than 500 record. So you've got teams like, obviously, the Jets, Jags, Texans, who are really bad. You've got the Chargers, who are 2-6. You've got the Bengals, 2-5-1.
The Vikings or the Panthers.
Yeah, and then on the NFC side of the ball, you've actually still got the 49ers at 4-5, the Lions and the Vikings at 3-5, Falcons and Panthers at 3-6. Obviously, you've got 3 of the NFC East teams there who might sneak in, but that's less to do with the fact they're going to sneak in a wild card and they're going to actually win the division. But for me, I think this Vikings team are the most likely of the ones with losing records to get in there, because I think this team are much better than that 3-5 record suggests.
And when you look at it, they are only 3 wins off the Packers, and they still have to play the Packers. So say they win that game against the Packers, which will be in Minnesota, you're only 2 wins off, and you've still got a good chunk of the season still to go.
They're only 2 wins
just after the halfway point.
They're only 2 wins off the wild card place at the moment.
Exactly.
They play the Bears this week as well. So if they beat the Bears coming out of this week I think they put themselves in a great position. The Lions will fall away. The Lions are poor. I know I've probably taken them every week in the predictions, and that's what we're laughing about. But I didn't think. Yeah, I think the Vikings will make a real push from now to the end of the season.
I agree. Reluctantly, as a Packers fan, that the Vikings will do it.
I know we're not maybe the highest on Kirk Cousins, but he has a great record against the Lions. I don't think he's ever lost to them.
If that's true, that's an impressive.
Since joining the Vikings in 2018, he's 5-0.
Well, I tell you,
against the Lions.
Did you look at that before you did your predictions?
No, I just literally found it out there.
Because what team did you predict for this game? Just asking.
The Lions.
Oh, maybe you should have checked that before the predictions. Then.
Yeah.
Mikey, you haven't had a game to talk about yet, so we can move on to one of yours. It was the Kansas City Chiefs at home to the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers gave the Chiefs a scare, 33-31. The Chiefs ended up winning. What's your takeaways from that game, Mikey?
Good game. Panthers made a good game of it. Obviously, the Chiefs, just their whole roster depth and quality as a whole shone through at the end. But plenty of positives to take from the Carolina Panthers side of the ball. Great to see Christian McCaffrey back for now.
For a game.
Final drive of the game.
He's out again this week, I think.
Yeah, he picked up a knock on the final drive of the game. So disappointing, because even as non-fantasy owners of Christian McCaffrey and non-Carolina Panthers fans, I loved seeing him back. I just love watching him. I think when he's fit, he's the best overall weapon in the NFL. I don't think there's a few other players that you could put in the conversation, but in my opinion, McCaffrey is number one.
I think you say that for a different player every week. Mikey, you said about Alvin Kamara this week.
But I did say about Alvin Kamara that we're only saying that because Christian McCaffrey's not been active. I did say that in last week's podcast, but Teddy Bridgewater was very good again. I think we spoke about this in the previous podcast, is that he's turning into the Teddy Bridgewater before that horrific ACL injury that he suffered. But McCaffrey had over 150 scrimmage yards plus a touchdown. But this just comes down to Patrick Mahomes again. He was 372 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. If you pair that with last week, when he was 416 yards with 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, it's only the second quarterback since 1950 to have at least 350 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in back-to-back games. Do you know who the other quarterback was?
Since when did you say?
1950.
Oh, so the start, right? The other
only the second player ever to throw for 350 plus passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in back-to-back games.
Peyton Manning.
Okay.
Nick Foles.
Are you having a laugh?
No, I'm joking. I have no idea.
It was Tom Brady in 2007 in his MVP winning season. It seems like an obvious answer, but
that doesn't seem like a Tom
so.
Brady stat. He doesn't take him as throwing for lots of yards, but
that was in his MVP winning season. That may have been the season that they were actually 16-0 when the Giants beat them in the Super Bowl. So that was one of the most potent offenses I think we've ever seen. But Mahomes is. I just feel like every week Mahomes is just cementing his legacy in the Hall of Fame already, and he's only in his third year. It only is
third year starter, isn't it?
Third year as a starter. Just madness. I don't see how he's not going to continue this and end up being the greatest quarterback to have ever lived. It's just hard, and I know that we are living in it as well. So we didn't see the likes of Dan Marino and everyone like that, but Mahomes is just. It's very rare for him to have a bad game, if at all. So
this is definitely the dynasty of the 2020s, isn't it? We already can see it's going to happen. Like the Patriots were for the last 20 years. This is definitely going to be. They're going to get at least another 3 Super Bowls over the next 10 years, at least.
At least you'd
think a big part of that's Andy Reid as the coach. How long he ends up staying there is probably another question as well. I think while he's there and while Mahomes is there, I think they'll be lethal. I think it would be interesting to see how a different coach would fare in that team. I still think they would be very successful, but I think Andy Reid probably does a ridiculously underappreciated job at times. Because let's be honest, if you were to rank most of the players in that Chiefs team, aside from Kelsey, Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill, you maybe wouldn't put most of the other positions right up there. But they're just like Mikey said, they're a very good roster with a lot of roster depth as well. And I think that's probably why you win, or why they won the Super Bowl, and why they'll probably win so many from now onwards.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers had a really good job at shutting down the running game. They only had 36 rushing yards. So thank you for taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire off my hands, Mikey.
I was happy with his numbers for me this week as well, because I won this week, Adam.
I know. I did in Dynasty. Does that count?
No, it does not.
No.
But one thing I noticed as well when watching this game, and I feel that the Panthers did a very, very good job of it in the first half, first 3 quarters, until Mahomes kind of just exploded near the end, was how much time Panthers spent working the clock. I think they took up the full first quarter on their first drive or something like that. They were obviously, people always say it, but it's very hard to actually do it, was basically just, if we're on the ball, Mahomes won't be. Simple as that. So that's what they were trying to do. It worked for a while, but there's only so long you can keep Patrick Mahomes down, to be honest. So he came up clutch, won his team the game. I've seen a celebration of him carrying Tyreek Hill back to the touchline. It's just basically him carrying his team non-stop, and that's all he's going to do for the rest of his career. No matter how good his team is around him, he's going to be number one.
I think Teddy's year at the Saints last year did him an absolute world of good, learning off of Drew Brees. I think a lot of what you see from Teddy at the moment is Drew Brees-esque. That was hard for me to say. Drew Brees-esque, because he's just... I think I described this... spoilers, we have a quarterback ranking special that's coming out soon. But in that, I think I described Bridgewater as like a decent, really good game manager, a similar sort of Brees mode. It's really harsh to call Brees a game manager, but he doesn't have like a bullet arm anymore. He's not hugely mobile. To be fair, Teddy had a good wee rush there where he went like Superman at one point. But
he went stiff as a board and just went straight.
Yeah. But I think Teddy is doing really well to manage that. His longest pass was only 28 yards. So he's not firing downfield, but I think this team, a lot of people seem to think that Carolina might try to get a quarterback in the draft, but I think if they stick with Teddy, it could be quite good for them.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they should.
You see it as well with everybody thinks that Robbie Anderson's his favourite go-to target, but when you just look at the stats, Christian McCaffrey, 10 receptions, Samuel, 9 receptions, Robbie Anderson, 9 receptions, and Mike Davis, 5 receptions, and then there was a few others as well. He's not thrown for massive yards, but I think he's, as far as quarterbacks come, he's got one of the best football IQs out there. He knows exactly what needs to be done. And any other week, I thought they would have won that game. Obviously, when you're up against Patrick Mahomes, you stand less of a chance.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I hope people don't get sick of your voice, Mikey, because you've got another couple of games in a row here. So we'll move on to one that I'm going to assume you might talk about not too much, with it being 2 1-win teams going into the game, but it was Houston at Jacksonville. Houston winning 27 points to 25. No Minshew this week, so there was no Minshew mania, and their backup was playing. What did you have to take away from that game?
Even though this was my game, I had texts from both of you throughout the week offering me money to take this game because Gardner Minshew wasn't in it. You will do anything to speak about anything but Gardner Minshew. But yeah, he was benched for I think it was an injury. I can't remember what the injury was, but
I think he had surgery on a broken finger.
Yeah, the Jake Luton came in. We spoke about him on Sunday night. He was brilliant. I feel like this season more than any other season that I've watched football, quarterbacks have came in for an injured starting quarterback, and they have just came in a baptism of fire. Like Ben DiNucci in a divisional game away to the Eagles. Even the likes of Andy Dalton. Tua came in against the Rams. Same with Alex Smith. You've just got these quarterbacks coming in probably the worst possible time. You're coming in a divisional game. You're against JJ Watt as well. But he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. He looked like he'd been playing in the NFL for a good 3 or 4 years. 304 yards passing, a rushing touchdown as well. He failed on the 2-point conversion, but it's a rookie game, and I don't think they're going to be too upset that they lost that game, considering they might have a top 3 pick in the draft. So, but the start of this game was just absolute madness. You had DJ Chark 73-yard touchdown to start the game, and I think that was potentially Jake Luton's first throw of the game.
Yeah, yep. It looked like it.
Yeah, so yeah, what nerves has he got? Absolutely none. And then straight away when the Texans got the ball, 57-yard touchdown from Brandon Cooks as well. And you just knew straight away that this was going to be a good game. Obviously, the fireworks didn't continue throughout the game, but it was an interesting game to watch, especially with Jake Luton. JJ Watt got his 100th career sack in only 120 career games.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? It really
one
is.
Of the best, probably the best defensive player in my generation. Anyway, I'll say Aaron Donald is once he retires, but right now JJ Watt having 2 or 3 defensive player of the years awards. The guy's an absolute wrecking ball.
His wee brother's going to try and beat him the way he's playing it in Pittsburgh. Certainly,
very interesting. But yeah, just a very good game. Seems to be quarterback controversy happening all over the league just now. So who knows what's going to happen? I think the Jags play the Packers this week. Whether Gardner Minshew is still injured or not, I don't think it'll matter. I think Jake Luton will start regardless of Minshew's status for this week. Excuse
me while I just pick up the Green Bay defense in fantasy.
Yeah, I actually think it was a relatively exciting game throughout. I think the fact that it stayed pretty close, it never totally ran away from either team. It was kind of pretty back and forward. And for 2 teams that haven't been great so far this season, I think it turned into a pretty decent spectacle. I was happy enough when Will Fuller caught a 77-yard touchdown, which basically accounted for nearly half of his. In fact, it accounted for 2/3 of his yards and probably more than about 90% of his fantasy score this week.
Yes, definitely.
Also just point out that Mikey was playing Sandy this week, and DJ Chark was on Sandy's bench. So if Sandy had started DJ Chark, Mikey would have lost.
Yeah, well, Sandy.
Any chance to put Mikey down in fantasy?
Sandy had messaged me actually yesterday saying, "Is there any way to check projected scores from previous weeks in relation to actual scores? Because I feel as if I've had high projected scores and failed them basically every week." And looking at the stats, yes, he basically has underperformed his projected score almost every week, which is why the only team worse in fantasy than me is Sandy at the moment. So, yeah. But I think the fact that we didn't have a huge amount to talk about this game is apparent there. So move on to another one who Mikey says he doesn't have a huge amount to talk about, and I don't blame him looking at the score of it. Baltimore at Indianapolis, 24 points to 10. Baltimore won that one. Was that just a solid Ravens way to win a game, Mikey?
just a routine victory. A couple of things that I've not even got it written down. I just remember reading that this is the first time in Lamar Jackson's career that he's been losing at halftime and came on to win a game. I think he was 0-6, including the playoffs, in any games that he was losing at halftime. And then another one that I remember seeing is that this is the 31st straight game in a row where the Ravens have put up 20 plus points. That record started when Lamar Jackson checked in for Joe Flacco on that first game. So if you are a franchise that wants to put up points, 20 points a week consistently, put Lamar Jackson in your team. Simple as that. That he's not, I know Kai's been trying to trade him away in fantasy. He's not been as fantasy relevant as he obviously was in his MVP winning season, but in terms of NFL, he'll get you wins. Smart quarterback. Got to give credit to him for this win, I would say. But yeah, not really much else to talk about in this game. It was just, as I said, a very routine win for the Ravens.
Yep, looking at the stats, it looks like that. They had 38 rushing attempts compared to 23 pass attempts. And you know that when the Ravens run the ball, they win the game, basically. If they can get the running game going, then they've won that game. Very strangely spread out the rushing game for the Indianapolis Colts. I keep saying this because I'm a Jonathan Taylor owner and he's not been doing anything. He was sat on my bench, which I was getting very frustrated when he scored that touchdown early on, but he didn't really do anything after that. As a Mark Andrews fantasy owner, Mikey, are you getting frustrated with Mark Andrews?
I was literally just about to bring that up, just looking at the stat sheet. Yeah, he started the season very well. I think first 3 games of the season, in terms of fantasy, it was brilliant. This week, 5 targets, 3 receptions for 22 yards. He is that. I still think he's an elite top 5 tight end in the league, but he's in that weird grey area because of the Ravens' offense being so run heavy that when they're winning, you're not going to see a lot of Mark Andrews, and they win a lot. So it's difficult. Even when you noticed it in the Steelers game as well. I don't think Mark Andrews had the greatest of games either. They were targeting him a lot, but maybe just an off day for Mark Andrews. But I wouldn't be surprised if in other leagues you seen Mark Andrews getting traded around. If I had him in a dynasty league, I'd maybe consider trading him, but I'll keep him in ESPN just for one more season until we do a redraft.
What do you think is happening with this backfield when Ingram comes back? Because you had Dobbins with 2.5 yards a carry, Edwards with 2.1 yards a carry. The longest gain was actually by Lamar Jackson of 9 yards. Wasn't great in this game, and it's been struggling a few games before. And Ingram wasn't particularly good before he got injured. So what's actually going to happen? Yeah,
I don't think you can put the stats from this game down to anything because the Colts have a phenomenal D. It'll be very interesting. I'd like to see. I'm not talking in terms of fantasy. I'm just talking in terms of the NFL in general. I'd like to see a lot more of J.K. Dobbins. But Mark Ingram's one of the locker room leaders, and they're not going to take snaps away from him anytime soon, especially as you get closer to the playoffs. So it's just it seems like the most elite running back by committee, but it's still a running back by committee at the end of the day. So it's very difficult to know who's going to be the lead back in this team.
Mikey, I thank you for your service for those 3 games back to back. That was good of you to do that.
Sorry, I feel we're missing the biggest point of this whole game.
What was that?
Was the fact that the Colts decided to go Hail Mary on a play and had to bring Jacoby Brissett out because Phillip Rivers can't throw the ball that far anymore.
Yeah, maybe if he had less kids, he'd be able to throw the ball further.
I mean, it was Jacoby Brissett's only snap of the game. It didn't go anywhere. Yeah, I just found that really amusing.
Yeah, you did mention it on Sunday night, and I apologise we didn't mention it there. But Kai, you had something slightly more interesting to watch than Jobby? That's not a word. Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett's Hail Mary. Sorry, we've fallen apart here, folks. Jacoby Brissett. His Hail Mary was slightly less interesting. Was slightly less interesting than Seattle Seahawks at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo actually won this game 44 points to 34, which was perhaps surprising for some people, especially after how Seattle had been playing. and how Buffalo had struggled the past couple of games. But Buffalo won 44 points to 34. On you go, Kai. Tell us about that game.
Oh, sorry. I just need to recover myself. Oh.
It's hard to talk, all right? No one quite appreciates how tricky this is.
At least we're authentic.
Exactly. That's not getting edited
Unedited,
out either. Exactly.
Pure. Yeah, I thought this was probably the best game this week. I would say so. Two really good teams going into it with two really good records. And as much as the Bills winning was potentially a surprise, it wasn't surprising at the same time in a kind of weird way. I think they've obviously got the quality and they've got the talent there to win. But yeah, it just seemed like every time the Seahawks were getting close on the scoreline, the Bills would just go up and score again. And they just kind of kept their distance from them for the time being. Against what would arguably be the NFC's favourite for the Super Bowl. The biggest thing I would say on the Bills side of the ball is how good that receiving group looks. Obviously the main one is Stephon Diggs, 118 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, but nine receptions for 118 yards. But you've also got John Brown, who ended up with 99 yards, just shy of the 100. Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis as well, who seems to pop up with touchdowns quite a lot in the red zone. Josh Allen certainly got plenty of targets to throw the ball to. And I thought Josh Allen had a great game this week. 415 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown as well.
Looking at the stats, it looks like he had to be, for both sides of the ball, the rushing games were basically non-existent. Passing game, obviously, for Buffalo, people are kind of describing them as a pass-first offense, and it seems to be that case for them there. And on the Seattle side of the ball, they just don't ever have any fit running backs, do they? Again, there was no Carson and no Hyde this week. They only had 57 rushing yards. But that receiving core as well, actually, for that side of the ball with Lockett and Mikey's favourite Metcalf. And you've also got Moore as well that comes in normally with some touchdowns hiding in there. Hollister with the tight end coming up with all the catches as well. These are two really good passing offenses, but mainly Mikey, but I think we all kind of agreed that Seattle were probably the favourites for the NFC a few weeks ago. But the more I look at that team, I worry about that defence, because
I've got that exact thing in part of my notes, is that as much as their offense is arguably one of the best in that league and one of the most consistent in that league, their defense is massively letting them down. Interestingly enough, they've allowed over 2,800 passing yards so far this season, which is the most by any team ever in their first 8 games in the Super Bowl era.
Well, that's impressive in the wrong way, isn't it?
Yeah, like you shouldn't. If you have that good a record and you're touted for making the Super Bowl, you need to have a good defense as well. And that's what the Seahawks are usually so good for. I mean, the season they won their Super Bowl.
It's a long way removed from the Legion of Boom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the polar opposite. I also now I'm kind of curious to see what you think. I think Russell Wilson is slowly losing his grip on the MVP season.
Yeah, he's had
8 interceptions now for the season.
Yeah, in the last 2 games, there's been 4 or 5 turnovers, something like that. And there's been a few fumbles as well, if I remember right, not just interceptions. Yeah, he had 2 fumbles. That's it.
Yeah, 2 fumbles this week.
He had himself 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. That's 4 turnovers in the game. They lost by 10 points. That was the difference in the game. Like,
massively.
Turned over the ball 4 times.
It happens. It's happened a few times now where when he's under a bit of pressure, he seems to be kind of losing his cool. He's usually so good in the pocket at breaking free and finding a way to get the ball out. And I don't know whether I don't really know what it's been the past couple of weeks, because you didn't see it through the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. I feel like he's maybe under a bit of pressure when he's not got elite running backs. I think he feels like he's under a bit of pressure to keep the ball and throw the ball all the time. I think when you get Carlos Hyde and you get Chris Carson back, it maybe takes a wee bit of pressure off him because he knows if he's maybe not having a good spell in the game, or the Seahawks as a team are under a bit of pressure, then he can drop the ball off to a running back and let them kind of do a bit of the work. I was trying so hard not to use the word pressure too often there.
Yeah. It's hard to do. Pressure's a common word.
I'm trying to think of other words that you can use instead of pressure. I still think like the Seahawks will make the playoffs, no doubt. They'll probably win that division, but I just feel like maybe the number one seed in the NFC, and I'm starting to have my doubts.
Are you thinking maybe the Packers? Packers.
Unfortunately, yes.
Good. You hear that, Mikey?
I think if anyone's going to beat them to the number one seed in the NFC, I think it'll be the Packers.
You heard it here first, Mikey. Kai thinks the Packers are going to be the number one NFC seed.
I didn't necessarily say I thought they would be. I think if the Seahawks aren't, then I mean I would say the Saints, if they can kind of, obviously we'll come on to that, if they can build off this week, I think they could potentially make a push as well. But I would say it's probably it's the Seahawks seed to lose, and if anyone's going to take it, I think it would be the Packers.
So you mentioned the Saints there. What division are the Saints in, Mikey?
Sorry?
What division are the Saints in? You mentioned the Saints.
NFC South.
All right, well, an NFC South team were the Atlanta Falcons, and they were at home to the Denver Broncos this week, and Mikey was looking at that game for us.
Awful.
I know, it was poor. I know.
Because I was still waiting to say my piece on, because we barely even spoke about the Bills there, who won that game. The one thing I was just going to say is that obviously Josh Allen's grandmother passed away the day before the game. And what the Bills Mafia did was they raised over $100,000 for a children's hospital in Buffalo in honor of Josh Allen's grandma, and they were all given $17 donations, obviously from his jersey number. And Josh Allen came out and said, "My family is forever engraved here, myself included. I don't ever want to leave." I think that guy potentially could be a Bill for the rest of his life. Genuinely, the guy loves the place, loves the team, and he's got a massive future ahead of him. And that was a statement win for potentially a dark horse in the MVP race, and Josh Allen. But yes, I'll go for that game now.
I said at the start of the season.
Well, I think we all thought it. We all thought it, and then you had a couple of bad games there. But you're allowed a couple of bad games in the MVP season.
You're having a nightmare.
I know, I can't speak. I'll pass it over to Mikey. On you go. Talk about Denver, Atlanta. Atlanta won 34 points to 27.
This is another game I don't really have much on. The only thing I will say is that the Falcons almost falconed it.
Yep.
We had a bit of a healthy lead at one point, and the Broncos won the fourth quarter 21-7.
Can I just point out you've described
6 points.
You've described a 21 point lead as healthy. I mean, I would suggest that's a bit more than healthy.
Yes, very, very, very healthy. But I said this on Sunday night in our group chat. I thought Drew Lock played fantastic. I think he was making a lot of very good throws in tight windows. He did throw a pick at one point, but 300 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. But on the Falcon side of the ball, because it's not often that you get to talk about them in a positive light.
Can I quickly counter your Drew Lock point, Mikey? Because I've looked at some stats over his last 2 games. Okay,
hit me.
He's played well in the fourth quarter of games, but in the first 3 quarters of his last 2 games, he's thrown for 244 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And in the fourth quarter of his last 2 games, he's thrown for 306 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. He seems to bring it at the end. He's a clutch player. But
you only need to play well in the fourth quarter. That's what I think Drew Lock should go to any team that can do a healthy 3-quarter lead, and then bring him on in the fourth quarter just to cement the win. But on the Falcon side of the ball, correct me if I'm saying his name wrong, but Zacchaeus had 4 receptions for 103 yards. Matt Ryan, in a game where he's only thrown for 280 yards, was a poor Matt Ryan performance, kind of similar to what we say about Aaron Rodgers. He set the bar so high for himself in terms of yardage and touchdowns. Todd Gurley 53 rushing yards and a touchdown, but
inefficient again, Mikey.
Yes and no. I think the big question when Todd Gurley went to the Falcons was, is he going to stay healthy enough to be a big player for this team? And I think the question is yes. He's second in rushing touchdowns in the league. He's third in carries, so it's not like they're not giving him the ball. He's fifth in first downs and fifth in the league in rushing yards. I think that's exactly what they wanted from Todd Gurley. Again, we say it all the time, when people set the bar so high for themselves like Todd Gurley did in 2018, you're going to want to expect more. But coming into a new franchise, new system, I think he's did well, and they are putting a lot of trust in him. But yeah, a good win for the Falcons. They needed it. I think both teams needed this to kind of kick on. You'd think maybe both of these teams will have a top 10 pick in the draft. It just depends on the second half of the season. But literally the only note that I've got down, I'm not saying he's the best wide receiver from this rookie class, but just from watching this game, I think Jerry Jeudy is the best route runner out of this wide receiver rookie class. I just think some of his movement, I think it's very similar to Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, the way he runs the ball. Obviously playing in a struggling offense that doesn't throw the ball a lot, but he had 7 receptions for 125 yards this week, and I really hope he kicks on from it because he's a phenomenal talent.
Yeah, he looks like Drew Lock's favourite receiver, certainly at the moment. So
we spoke that into existence last week when I asked you whether I thought Jerry Jeudy was struggling so far to adapt. I think he's proved us all wrong.
Yeah.
In that game
I
alone.
sided with Jerry Jeudy last week. I must admit.
I don't think any of us didn't side with him. I think we just said it was a slow burner.
Did I not say something about the fact that it was maybe the quarterback that was the issue, not the receiver?
Not him himself.
Yeah. The good news for you, Kai, is every week I ask you to pronounce that tight end's name, and he's now injured, isn't he? So
I know, thank God.
So good luck, Albert O, in your recovery from injury. We look forward to seeing you on the podcast at some point soon, because you're our favourite tight end, apart from all the other ones that we say are our favourites as well. Kai, you were looking at 2 more AFC West teams. The LA Chargers at home to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chargers were up 32 points to 31 and then somehow lost the game because it wasn't 32 to 31.
Yeah. I think for anyone listening wondering how I've ended up talking about the Chargers and Justin Herbert again, it's not a fix. It just happens to be that since we've started doing this thing where we all take a few games for the week, I've ended up with the Chargers every week.
I think it's not a fix, but maybe I'm fixing
it. I'm not complaining. I like watching Justin Herbert. Another lead thrown away by the Chargers.
How did they find a way to lose this game? They were like...
I honestly don't know. I think other weeks you can put it down to the team they're playing well to get there. I don't actually think the Raiders played that well at all. I don't think they played well enough to win it. I think the Chargers showed in large parts that they should have won that game. Honestly, I don't really have an answer for what it is specifically that lost them the game. I think I feel like there was a couple of opportunities at times where the Chargers could have probably got kicked on and made it a bigger lead. There was 2 or 3 passes that Herbert was throwing that were maybe inches too long or just ever so slightly off, or that receivers maybe didn't quite haul in. And obviously if one of them's hauled in, then it's a totally different game. But I feel like the Raiders just kind of went about their business, got the job done. They only had 320 total yards, which was directly split right down the middle in terms of rushing and receiving. Devontae Booker got himself involved. I think he had more yards equal yards, with Josh Jacobs. Derek Carr had a relatively good performance. He only threw for 160 odd yards, a couple of touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, something needs to change for the Chargers for them to be able to hold on to leads, because they're good enough to get the lead in the first place. They just don't seem to be able to then consolidate on it.
Obviously, they
I know
threw...
what needs to change.
On you go, Mikey.
I don't think Anthony Lynn's the right man for the job.
So just about to say that.
I like him as a person from Hard Knocks. I think he's a good man manager, but the amount of talent that the Chargers have to throw these games away and have that record is shocking, really. I don't think it's got anything to do with the personnel on the field. I know you've got a couple of rookies in there, but I mean, it's just, I think this is only his, I don't think he's a seasoned head coach, and I think that's really shown, but they are missing a lot of big pieces on D. Bosa was out with a concussion. They've not had Chris Harris or Derwin James all season. Chris Harris is a former Super Bowl winner with the Broncos. Derwin James is probably their second best defensive player behind Joey Bosa. So they've been struggling a lot with injuries as well. But you can't throw games away like this. I think of their 6 losses this season, it's came at a combined points total loss of like 24 points, which is only 4 scores. So they're not even losing a game by a full score. They're losing them by a point, 2 points, and it's crazy, really. This could be a total. We could be sitting here looking at the Chargers as a playoff team, 100%, especially with Herbert and Keenan Allen. And one player I've not even mentioned is Austin Eckler as well, one of the top 10 running backs in the league. Just really, really struggling just now, and I think it's to do with Anthony Lynn.
Eckler being adequately replaced by Kalen Ballage this week for some reason. Activated off the practice squad.
Justin Jackson decided to get himself injured on the first snap of the whole game.
Yeah, really strange. And going on Mikey's point about the coaching, something I heard, not a rumour, but a theory. Tom Brady played in New England for many years and then decided, I'll go and retire, play my last few years somewhere hot. Could Bill Belichick do the same thing? Leave New England, go to a team that has a great roster, fantastic young quarterback, sunshine on the California coast, go and retire, take over the Chargers. Bill Belichick, yeah.
Bill Belichick could become the Chargers coach.
Cannot see him ever leaving New England, honestly. I think he
not
likes
think
the
for a
Colts.
bit of retirement, no?
He always looks like he's really nice and cozy, like wrapped up at the side, wee hat and like about 4 jackets.
Do you not think his missus would like to go somewhere a bit hotter though?
Yes and no. I mean, she is a multi-millionaire, so I don't think it's the end of the world if she stays in New England. But I could always see Tom Brady. I know it looked weird when we first seen him in the Tampa Bay jerseys, but I can't see Bill Belichick being anywhere else but New England, as weird as that sounds, even though he did coach the Jets at one point. But
and the Browns.
I just cannot see it. I'd love to see it. I can't picture it.
We'll see. Just a theory I'd heard.
Stranger things have happened.
Parting comments. I feel like Mikey gets his outlandish claim of the week. I have my Justin Herbert stat of the week.
I don't have a drop for you. Sorry, guy.
We'll make one. So after that performance, Justin Herbert went 326 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's now surpassed Cam Newton for the most passing yards by a rookie quarterback in their first 7 starts. Cam Newton was the leader since 1950, so he now has the most passing yards through 7 games.
And that was Kai's Justin Herbert stat of the week.
Oh, that was positive until that.
It's not very positive when Joe Burrow's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So.
But
You're just desperate to talk about him, even though he didn't play.
Well, just quickly
I'll talk about it if you want.
Finishing on that Chargers game, the reason I said they were winning 32-31 is they obviously got the touchdown with the last play of the game, and then it was called back.
Yes,
which is very disappointing for them.
At first I was like, that's 1000% a touchdown, but there was only one camera angle where you actually seen it pop out, and a good call, and fair play to the Raiders. That I know I've spoke about the Chargers a lot when it was a Raiders win, but the Raiders are sticking in there. I thought that they were going to make the playoffs, and with a win like that, they could continue on from that. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, Raiders are doing a real kind of old style play, I think. Gruden's bringing that run the game, run, and then a wee bit of play action to do some deep throws. I think that's really what their aim is, and it's working well because they've got one of the best running backs in the league there in Josh Jacobs. Has everyone got fed up of listening to Kai and Mikey? Because I have, so I've got a couple of games now to talk about.
Because you have a couple of games.
Both. Yeah. My first one, again, I'm not actually going to talk much about Pittsburgh at Dallas. Everyone said, hey, great, Pittsburgh are going to win this game. They did. It wasn't as easy as they should have. Now Dallas are on about, their 18th quarterback or something of the season. Or their fourth choice, I should say. I'm being slightly hyperbolic. But Gilbert, I don't think played that bad, to be honest, for someone who was a fourth-string QB. Someone who I don't think played particularly well. In fact, the whole offense didn't start particularly well for Pittsburgh. Again, I'm not too sure about maybe Big Ben's decision-making. In some instances, they should really have won that game a lot easier than they did. They didn't run the ball very well at all. 46 yards rushing, I should say, for Pittsburgh. But in the end, they got the job done. A lot of people say that Pittsburgh play down to their opposition a lot. Like, Pittsburgh are capable of being amazing, but if they're playing against someone who's not very good, they'll kind of drop down to their level. And I think that's kind of what happened here.
That's the case this week.
Yeah. But I was actually very impressed with the way Dallas played. I think Elliott and Pollard both played quite well. Pollard was more efficient rushing, but I thought they both played quite well. And I thought, for a minute, Dallas might win that game. But they didn't quite.
Very worried at one point.
Yeah.
When there was a potential for Dallas to actually win against a team that they really shouldn't be beating.
Yeah.
Collective sigh of relief, I would imagine, amongst Eagles fans when the Steelers went ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask there. If you had Garrett Gilbert playing against the Eagles, do you think the Cowboys would have won?
Yes. Well, I'm not saying yes outright they would have won. I think they would have had more of a chance of winning than they did.
I think Garrett Gilbert, even though he's never been a starting quarterback or anything, I think that his experience shone through against the Steelers. I think he was making a lot more. I think, Adam, you said it before the game was even kicked off, that Garrett Gilbert would be playing a lot of nice, safe, short passes. I thought he was very, very good. He's been in and around the league for the best part of 6 years. I think he even played in the AAF as well at some point. The other American Allegiance Football League. So I think obviously you would rather have Andy Dalton and Dak Prescott, but if you don't have those two, you're going with Garrett Gilbert at least for the rest of the season until Andy Dalton's ready to play again.
I have a question about Pittsburgh. They are 8-0, okay? But are they actually that great? Now, I know that sounds stupid because they are 8-0, but they've beaten the Giants, who are 2-6, 2-7, whatever they are, the Broncos, the Texans, the Eagles, the Browns, the Cowboys. They've had two tough games against the Titans and Ravens that they've both just scraped by. But apart from those, 6 of their wins have been against teams you'd expect them to win.
I think I saw something similar to that, or like basically outlining what you've just said, in the way that 6 of the wins have been against teams that were less than 500 when they played them.
Yeah.
They seem to have got that 8-0 record by. I'm not saying they've played badly, because they've not. They've been ridiculously good at times. But it feels like you said, they've been able to play in second gear for most of the season, and not have to be 100% every week. Like this week, they didn't. They won, not just, but they never really had to kick into gear and play really, really well to claw the game back. I think against a very good team, and I say that as if they've not played the Ravens, who were good, but
again, it was just a
Ravens,
scrape.
they kind of flew by the seat of their pants a wee bit, I think, about against the Ravens, and if the Ravens had been a bit more sensible and played a wee bit better, I think they would have probably beat them. But it'll be interesting to see what happens if Big Ben is out. I know he's obviously got like a double knee injury at the moment. I don't know how long they're anticipating him actually being injured for, but it'd be interesting to see what happens if he's out, whether it changes anything massively.
Yeah.
See, I'm gonna not disagree with Kai, but flip it and say that they haven't really had to get out of second gear for most of their games. I don't know, I feel like although they're 8-0, they're completely underrated and underappreciated by a lot of the media and stuff this season. yes, they've only had kind of 2 big challenges, but they've won them. And then you could even put this game against the Cowboys as another massive challenge, even though they were expected to win at the start. I don't think they'll finish 16-0. I think there's got to be a loss or 2 in there at some point.
Here's the schedule, again. Mikey, and I was just looking at it. It's not particularly hard. Okay, Bengals, Jags, Ravens again, Washington. You've got a tough one at Buffalo. Bengals, Colts, Browns.
There's 2 losses in there somewhere, and I'm not saying it's from the 2 that you mentioned. It could be from someone like the Colts towards the end of the season when injuries and fatigue starts to come in. I cannot see them finishing what the Patriots did about, what was it, 10, 12 years ago was unheard of in a 16-game season. I know they never won the Super Bowl that year, but 16-0 is almost impossible to do. And I just, as much as I really like the Steelers and I think they potentially will go to the Super Bowl or at least the AFC Championship, I just can't see them finishing 16-0.
I agree with you.
Sorry, you go, okay.
No, I was just going to say, like, on that schedule, like, playing the Ravens will be looking to try and bounce back from the fact they lost against them last time. So
it's on Thursday Night Football as well.
Sorry?
It's on Thursday Night Football as well.
Yeah, so it's like Thursday Night Lights. They'll probably want to be winning that. The Bills will probably still be chasing it, but I think the biggest one is the Colts in Week 16. That there is a very good chance that come Week 16, the Colts could still be within touching distance of the first place in that division with the Titans there as well.
They'll need to win more.
And they need to win more than the Steelers might need it. So I think you might find by that point the Colts will be playing very, very like aggressive football. I think that's probably more likely to be where they lose than against the Ravens in Week 12 or something.
It'll be interesting.
Just to go back to Garrett Gilbert for a second, this is his career accolades. Mr. Texas Football 2008. He's the AAF. He's an AAF champion, the AAF passing yards leader, and the AAF passer rating leader. He's also a Super Bowl champion.
Who did he win a Super Bowl with?
He won a Super Bowl in 2015 with the New England Patriots, the one that the Butler had the interception in the last play of the game. He was obviously the backup quarterback to Tom Brady.
The more you know.
See, so
I think the most impressive accolade out of that is Mr. Texas Football. Like, everyone wants to be Mr. Texas Football.
I mean, if I'm looking at other people who've won it that we know, Kyler Murray won it 2 years. Johnny Manziel won it. Garrett Gilbert won it, and I don't know if you remember him, Jaquiz Rogers. He was a running back.
Oh,
he won it in 2007. Marvin Mims won it last season. I've never heard of him, but I mean, it's a very prestigious accolade if Kyler Murray's won it as well.
Oh, actually, talking about Kyler Murray,
yes,
there we go. Like that one, yeah. Kyler Murray was the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, who are playing at home to the Miami Dolphins. 2-1. Did we all predict that Tua was going to win this game? I can tell you, Probably not. 34 points to 31, Miami won this one. It started off the way that I thought was the only way that Miami were going to win this game. A Miami defensive touchdown. I was like, there we go. Miami defense is hugely underrated. Brian Flores, an unbelievable defensive coach, and that defense has been coached fantastically well. But it turns out that Tua did some things compared to last week where he didn't. He really seemed to be getting just eased in nice and slowly into the NFL. This week he threw more passing yards in the first quarter, I'm sure it was, than the whole of the game last week. On the ground, they obviously had some injuries with Myles Gaskin and Matt Breida. So Jordan Howard came out and improved his average rushes per attempt. Because he averaged 1.9 rushes an effort. 1.9 yards, an effort here. It's unbelievable to watch Jordan Howard because he's clearly a talented back, which is why he was drafted as he was, and stuff. But that's just nothing. He just runs into people and falls down. Tua rushed for 35 yards, and have you all heard of Ahmed? Yeah,
that's that, by the way.
Definitely.
I didn't even think I noticed him on the night.
Yep, 38 yards on 7 attempts he had there. But Tua was passing to Parker, Preston Williams, Grant, Williams went off injured, and I think he's now been placed on IR. But I was actually very impressed with Tua. Had a passer rating of 122, threw for 2 touchdowns. I think both these quarterbacks really dragged their team to such a good game. Either team, I think, could have won it. Kyler, I'm just looking at the stat line. Kyler threw 21 completions for 283 yards, 3 touchdowns. Fantastic. Oh, but he also ran 11 times for 106 yards.
Those rushing yards those rushing stats is what you would expect out of like your running back one in a week.
Except their running back ran for 25 times and only 70 yards. Like
it's stupid. Like it looked at times as if the two of them were just trying to outdo each other.
Yeah.
Like anything you can do, I can do better. And
I think I may have said
it made for a very exciting game.
I think I may have said last week.
Matchup where we'll see them both for years to come against each other.
Yeah.
Two young quarterbacks. We're going to see a lot of Tua versus Kyler.
I think I may have said last week that I was not sure if Tua was very good.
Mm-hmm.
You thought they were going to trade it and get another quarterback?
Well, what I said was, bear in mind at that point they had a winning record, at least a 500 record with Fitzpatrick. So it's harsh to have dropped him. So I thought they were going to play Tua to see if he was any good for them in the NFL. Obviously, he was good in college, but if he is any good in the NFL, and then if he wasn't, they'd move off him. But I think they're fairly happy that they've played him. He is good, and they went, you know what, we made a good pick there. So I'm fairly confident with what I said was right, but it turns out that Tua has played as well as they thought they were going to. Yeah, I can't say anything else really. Tua was really good in this game. Christian Kirk catching huge balls for Kyler Murray as well. I just enjoyed again, there's not many times I can just say I sat and watched and enjoyed the game, because some of them are quite difficult to watch, but I enjoyed watching this.
Would you believe me if I said that the Arizona Cardinals are the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL? You wouldn't think it, but they are.
Not off the top of my head.
Wouldn't if you think it.
Yeah. If I asked you who it was, you would probably say other few teams, like for example the Chiefs or whatever. But yeah, the Cardinals right now are the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL, which surprised me a bit. I know they've got weapons. They've got the best receiver in the league, in my opinion. Kyler Murray, who I absolutely love. Decent running backs, but yeah, this was all about the Dolphins. That they're playing with no fear. We all thought that when they were 3-3 and they benched Fitzpatrick that we weren't sure how it was going to go, but they've now won 4 in a row, and yeah, they're just playing with absolutely no fear. I don't think the fact that they've played the Rams and the Cardinals, who are both playoff contenders, it's fantastic what the Dolphins are doing just now. I think there's one team every season that seems to be in playoff contention but doesn't ever really get there. I think the Dolphins might be that one this season. I think it's very soon for them to be reaching the playoffs, but the way they've been playing lately, who knows? This season is so up for grabs with no fans being in the stadium and things like that.
Definitely. Looking at the stat line for DeAndre Hopkins, it looks from the outside, just without having watched the games, disappointing. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 18 yards. But he was targeted a lot more than 3 times. He just drew so many defensive passer interference calls. Like Howard, I think it must have been at least 3, 4, maybe 5 times.
It happened. It felt like every play that went to Hopkins there was a defensive pass interference every single time. I think he was getting frustrated by it, but if it gets your team up the field, and it was leading to a lot more first downs, and it was a close game. Obviously, the field goal should have been made by the Cardinals, to take the game to overtime, but just one of those. They beat the Seahawks in overtime with the field goal. This time it wasn't to be, so you can't win them all, but I think the Cardinals have a lot of positives to take from this game. They look like they're solidifying themselves in the playoff race, even with this loss.
I was going to say this could be 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, which is
because they both have the same record now.
Yeah,
I would say that the Cardinals have a better chance of making a push for the playoffs than the Dolphins do. The Dolphins are in a bit of an unfortunate position of they're not going to win that division.
No, but the Cardinals have a tougher schedule. I think the Cardinals have to play the rest of the NFC West. The Dolphins only have to play the AFC East.
I suppose the only other I mean, the Dolphins play all three of the teams in their division again, obviously, before the end of the season. Two of those teams are the Patriots and the Jets, so, I mean, they're not exactly daunting matchups. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the season. I don't think Tua's had. I think it'll be interesting to see when Tua kind of has a proper test on his hands, where he's maybe chasing a game or he needs to kind of rally the team to claw back a lead or anything. I think that's what you kind of want to see from him, because last week he never had to be that good like we saw to win. This week I think he was better to win, but again, I still don't think we saw what he's really capable of. I think in weeks to come, I think there'll be a game where really it shows like what he's worth.
I'm just having a look at the schedule for the Dolphins at the moment, because you said that you wanted a game where Tua, is coming from behind to chase the game. So I'm just looking to see in the future if they're playing against. Oh wait, yes they are, the LA Chargers. So the Chargers are good at throwing away leads. So
Tua and Herbert.
Yes, that could be an interesting one. In fact, this week is literally this week. Week 10, they play at home to the Chargers. So the Chargers will be up by a couple of touchdowns, and then Tua will have a comeback. Is that the way it's going to go?
To think, which leads me to my outlandish claim of the week.
Oh, let me get this music on, Mikey. Outland, Mikey's outlandish, Mikey's outlandish claim of the week.
What drives away of yours?
I sing that better every week, I think.
Has your mum commented on it since?
My mother, every single time she listens, says you should really stop singing. But what is your claim, Mikey?
I think Kyler Murray will break the single season record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, which was currently held by Cam Newton with 14 in 2011.
What's Kyler Murray on at the moment?
He's on 7 or 8 at the moment. So
yeah, it could happen.
I think this is what Cam did. Is that a few times that he almost broke his own record. A few times he rushed out to a big chunk of lead at the halfway point of the season. But second half of the season is always a bit more difficult when you have more injuries and things like that, especially to your defensive linemen. But I think Kyler Murray will break that. He is the rushing touchdown running back in that offense, even ahead of Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake. So I think he's got a good half a dozen still in him to break the record.
He has 8 at the moment.
So he needs
7 to break it.
He needs another 7. So he got 8 in the first half of the season, and he needs 7 in the second half of the season, which is it could go either way, but that's my prediction.
I think as you quite rightly say, it's trickier in the second half typically because defenses will now recognise that he's the rush threat as opposed to the other running backs. So they'll play more. At the start of the season, they maybe weren't sure how it was going to work, but now they know Kyler is the rushing offense as well as the passing offense. So we'll try. Yeah. I think you'll find a lot of QB spies will be played against Arizona now.
Can I ask a favour, Adam?
Yes.
Unless, Kai, you want to say something about this game still? Or Tyler?
To mention, obviously, like I mentioned the Dolphins' schedule to come, and you were mentioning the Cardinals. The Cardinals still need to play the Rams twice. So there's 2 games where he could end up getting flattened a couple of times. They play the Seahawks and the Bills this week and next week. But they play the Patriots, they play the Giants, they play the Eagles, and they play the 49ers, which are all games where you could very much see Kyler Murray breaking free and kind of going a bit wild. So I don't think it's beyond the wildest realms of possibility, but it'll be interesting.
I forgot that the NFC West this season we're playing the NFC East and the AFC East, and at the moment they're not great divisions. So that's maybe why the NFC West, most of the teams are 500 or above.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Right, Adam, can I take your job to segue into this game?
You'd like to segue into
just for this one time?
Yeah, on you go.
So before I ask you what the score was in this game, I've got a quote from Adam last week. This is word for word. I think Tampa will win it. I think they will be back with a vengeance and will absolutely demolish them. Talking about the Saints. I'm talking like a 2-touchdown victory. I think Drew Brees' arm is gone. I think he is struggling. So, Adam, what was the score in this Tampa Bay
It was
Buccaneers versus
38
New
points.
Orleans?
38 points to 3, and I was totally. Oh no, wait, that's the wrong way around. Right, I see. Yeah, the Saints may have won that game. I have a reason for that, and that you can argue with me later. So the first 5 drives for Tampa Bay were 3 and outs, and the reason for that is that they didn't run the ball. They had 5 rushing attempts in the whole game, and that included a QB kneel. So really, there was only 4 rushes in the whole game for them, and they just decided to make Tom Brady throw balls like 30 yards up the field. That's not Tom Brady's game. Tom Brady's short, quick passes. But I don't know what the game plan was from Bruce Arians, but it was rubbish, whatever it was.
It says it all when at the end of a game, the losing team is taking a knee to end the game.
Yeah, exactly.
That says it all.
This was, I think, statistically Tom Brady's worst game ever.
Potentially. And it's the first time he's ever lost a divisional matchup, like as went 0-2 against a division rival ever in his career.
Now, my point about Drew Brees might still stand, because he did only throw 26 passes for 222 yards. He wasn't really flying them down the field.
For 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers.
I agree.
Adam, you can't dig yourself out of this hole.
My point of his arm being not as good as it was, I feel could be true, but he's still a very good game manager. I thought Tampa Bay would come back, as I said there, because they got beat in the first round of fixtures with these 2, and they go, right, that's not happening again. But it was just poor coaching and play calling, in my opinion, that completely destroyed this for Tampa Bay.
We said in last week's podcast that this was a huge game, because even though the Bucs had a better record, if the Saints win this game, they're 2-0 against the division rival and will probably take a better seed in our home field advantage against the Bucs, which was massive.
I'm just laughing looking at the rushing stats for the Bucs.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely embarrassing for an NFL team.
Ronald Jones, 3 attempts for 9 yards. Fournette, 1 attempt for no gain. Gabbert, whoever that is,
he took the knee at the end.
Took a knee for -1 yards. They had 5 attempts for 8 yards.
It was utterly, and bear in mind, Ronald Jones had 9 yards. One of his attempts was 7 yards.
It was 7.
It was an utter embarrassment. I was watching the highlights, I say, on the Monday morning after this, and I've honestly never seen Tom Brady play as bad. He was getting so frustrated. Rob Gronkowski, like, 1 reception from 6 targets. Like, it was just everything fell apart. I thought, you know what I think the problem is? I think Antonio Brown, and I know that's his hard. I know it's maybe harsh to say because he's only been there for a week or 2, all right? But his personality in a dressing room,
it's toxic.
Yeah, I'm worried about it. I'm sure it was Ryan Shazier that said...
Perfect word for it.
Yeah, Ryan Shazier said for Pittsburgh, like, he acts like a child, Antonio Brown. I think
that's potentially part of the reason why the Bucs played so badly, was because Antonio Brown's, that's obviously his first game. He would not have settled for going into that game and not being targeted, not having the receptions, not being the guy on offense. I think he's come in with this personality, and I'm not saying he's overthrown Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, because you don't, like, that just doesn't happen. But I think they're almost trying to accommodate him too much, and that's why you probably saw so many times Tom Brady was trying to throw stupid throws down the field.
They were stupid.
Antonio Brown. There's like three interceptions. Like, I would say at least 2 of them were targets for Antonio Brown.
The thing is, as well, the fantasy relevance in this game, being the late game on the Sunday, was huge. You had on both sides of the ball. You probably had a lot of teams, not just in our leagues, who were waiting on a Tom Brady performance, or a Ronald Jones or Fournette, or Mike Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, or Gronkowski. And then on the other side of the ball, you were probably thinking Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jared Cook. None of them lit up the box score massively. I think I said to you both that Tom Brady only needed 11 odd points to become the most fantasy scoring player of all time to beat Jerry Rice's record. I think he finished on 2 points or something like that.
Yeah, it was 2.36. I'm looking at it here because Claire played against Finn this week, and Claire still managed to beat Finn, even though Claire played Tom Brady, who got 2.36 points, instead of Aaron Rodgers, who got 28.9. So Finn embarrassing.
Just when you talk about like fantasy relevance as well, like I mean, my matchup with Sean was right on the wire going into this game, and I had Ronald Jones and he had Antonio Brown, and I think we were both expecting something out of them, but we both knew we were taking quite a big risk. He was taking as big a risk, I would say, with Antonio Brown unproven in an offensive system that's different with so many other receivers. But yeah, it was a massive game fantasy-wise, and I think everyone was let down.
Well, one player, not fantasy-wise, you know how much I love the guy. Taysom Hill. 7 rushing attempts for 54 yards, 2 passing attempts for 48 yards, and 1 receiving yards, 21. The guy is just... and the thing is as well, he's such a good blocker as well. See, for someone of his size, he's such a good blocker in the passing and the running game whenever they play him. They even played a play where Drew Brees was out wide left, and even when they
be quarterback,
he did a pump fake as well, which I love. But the Taysom Hill, we had him in the practice squad at the Packers a few years ago, and we released him, and then the Saints picked him up. Oh man, I would love to have a Green Bay Packers jersey with Taysom Hill on the back.
Green Bay Packers get it sorted.
But I'll be honest, yes, I was wrong about this game, but I'll be honest, the Saints were just clinical. They were very, very good. And it should be interesting now to see the top of that division, because the two of them now are the same record, I'm sure. And we'll see what happens. I'm sure Tampa Bay won't play as bad again. You can clip that if you want for the next time they do, Mikey, and you can quote that back for me.
I think they just need to be they just need to be sensible. Like, they've got to this point with the team they've got playing the way they've been playing. Don't try and change it for other people. I know they will. Antonio Brown coming into it changes the way any team plays, but I think it's probably one of the worst things they could do is to try and shoehorn someone into an already good winning team.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because a team who tried to shoehorn Antonio Brown into an already winning team were the New England Patriots. And they played Monday Night Football at the New York Jets. You like that one, Kai? I saw you smile
That was pretty good.
Yeah. New England Patriots won 30 points to 27. I suppose it was expected to beat the Jets. It wasn't as easy as it should be. Just as Mikey had quoted something that I said, I'm going to quote a wee bit that Kai said in our group.
What? I thought that was back on Mikey.
No. That Kai said in our group chat as he was watching the highlights of Monday Night Football on Tuesday morning. And I'll read it.
I know what that says.
I'll read it verbatim, okay? Tell you what, by the way, the Jets played very, very well last night by the looks of this. And Flacco became the GOAT. And within literally 60 seconds, he says, take that back. He threw a 60-yard pick for no reason.
He didn't need to throw the ball.
But yeah, that interception probably cost them the game. I mean, they might have still had to punt or something. So. But it was the equivalent of a punt. But they might not have had to punt if they just kept the ball. But
I think the Jets seemed to play. I think they were a lot more sensible in how they played this week. They looked a lot more controlled.
That's every single game that they have played without Sam Darnold since they drafted Sam Darnold, they've lost.
I know you say Sam Darnold is a very good quarterback, and he is. I think he just doesn't fit this system. I don't think he has enough round about him to complement how good a quarterback he is. Now, someone like Joe Flacco is probably he's more of an old school quarterback. He's not great. He's not very he's not very glamorous, but I think he kind of showed against a team like the Patriots, who maybe aren't great themselves at the moment. He knew how to just play sensibly round about them. He picked off quite a few good passes to people, obviously threw 3 touchdowns, and then it was kind of soured a wee bit with that stupid interception.
Yeah, on the New England side of the ball, I thought they were really good running the ball. Buckhead was good. I actually think this Damian Harris is a really. I know they drafted him the year before this one, but then he was injured for a lot last season. Or if he wasn't injured, then he certainly didn't play. But He seems to be good. I don't think he looks like he can't be stopped. He hits people and then just continues to go. Yeah, it's really good. Jacoby Myers being the main receiver for the Patriots again. It's something stupid like 40% of targets in the last 2 or 3 games have went to Myers. He seems to definitely be the target for Cam. New York Jets running game, Frank Gore. Yeah, we say this every week, but yeah, Frank Gore is Frank Gore.
They've had to install a chairlift at the MetLife Stadium to get him up.
But I think, quickly touching on the quarterback situation at the Jets, I agree with what Kai says. I think Darnold, I've changed my opinion. I think this is his last season there. I think they're going to get the first overall pick. They're going to draft Trevor Lawrence and they're going to trade Sam Darnold, and they're going to get quite a lot of draft picks back, I think, for Sam Darnold. I think a team that needs a quarterback will happily take Sam Darnold. And you know who I'm really worried for is New England Patriots, because they're going to be in a division that has Tua, that has Josh Allen, that has Trevor Lawrence, and who do they have at quarterback?
Potentially not Cam.
Stidham. I mean,
I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to pull an Eli Manning and refuse to play for the as he did with the Chargers. I can't see him going to the Jets. I think it's silly for someone who's never played in the league. I think you need to earn your stripes, regardless of a losing record in a season, and then potentially get traded in a couple of years. But there's been a lot of rumours right now of Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags, and that's whether he refuses or not obviously remains to be seen. But that's something that we need to kind of watch as the season progresses, is if Trevor Lawrence is either going to stay in college, as we spoke about, for another year and do his senior year, or if he's going to refuse to take the first round pick and maybe get traded to another team in draft night.
Like, what happens if... Now, this is obviously quite a, it's not beyond the realm of possibility, but it's a wee bit fantastical in the way that what happens if Trevor Lawrence stays in college for a year, decides to declare for the draft next year, and the Jets have another horrific season, and they get the first pick again, and he is the first pick in the draft. Like, there's only so many times they can go, right, I don't want to go and play with the Jets.
Well,
I think...
Sorry, as Mikey said, it happened before with Eli Manning when he was drafted by the Chargers, but he said, I'm not playing for you, so you'll have to trade me, and they traded him to the Giants.
I mean, I can see that potentially happening, but I think the guy just needs to, like Mikey says, you just need to take your medicine, go in, just take the fact that you're getting into the NFL and just play for a team. You prove that the team, if they're bad, is the issue and not you personally. I think you see, I'm not saying the Bengals are on the same level as the Jets in terms of how poor they are, but the Bengals weren't good last season at all. Joe Burrow's come in and you've already seen an upturn in fortunes just because he is a very good quarterback. And I think, I'm not saying it's just him that's done that, but he's been a very large part of the fact that the Bengals are getting better and look more promising. So I think Trevor Lawrence should just come in, take the fact he's getting into the NFL, and he goes in and takes the chance to prove himself.
Yep, I can't disagree with you there. I think with Perriman, Mims, Crowder, there's enough, not high quality, but decent receivers that if he came in, he'd actually be able to do something with them. It's not like there's no one there at all. I'd much rather have the receiving core of the Jets than I would the Patriots. The Patriots have got nobody there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, as you say, Mikey, what Lawrence chooses to do throughout this the rest of this season. That's all the games done, guys. We're going to move on to our favourite part of the show, where Adam looks even more of an idiot.
Before that, I was going to offer the playoff predictions again, as we did last week.
Yes, if we want to do that.
Yep, so we'll just rifle through this as we kind of similar as we did last week. The NFC remains the exact same in terms of teams. The AFC, the Browns and the Colts are out of the playoff picture, and the Dolphins and the Raiders are in. So Steelers remain the number 1 pick. So you've got the number 7 Dolphins at the number 2 Chiefs.
Chiefs?
Yep. Then you've got the number 6 Raiders at the number 3 Bills.
Bills just, for me. Kai's got a thinking face.
And then you've got the number 5 Ravens at number 4 Tennessee, which was the same game as last week.
Yeah, I think I'd go Ravens now.
Yeah, I think I'd go Ravens.
Are we doing this as well,
so
Mikey? You act as a tiebreaker if me and Kai go opposite sides.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've got the number 5 Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Steelers for me.
Ravens.
Oh, right. That's split. So, Mikey, you have the deciding vote.
I'm going to say Steelers. And then you've got the number 3 Bills at the number 2 Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Right. Radio silence.
I'm
Really?
thinking I'm probably going to go... Yeah, it's hard to see past the Chiefs.
That bit of
So then
radio
you've got
silence was really
The
good,
Chiefs.
Kai, for
the
a
Chiefs in
podcast.
Pittsburgh.
You know, the radio silence is good for a podcast.
Yeah, nice.
To just make some random noise to let you know I'm still here.
I do a hum and a ha when I'm thinking of it.
And the Chiefs at Steelers AFC Championship.
Chiefs.
Chiefs for me.
Yeah, I'd say Chiefs. Right, and then the NFC, the Saints are now the number 1 seed who replace the Seahawks. So you've got number 7 Rams at number 2 Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Seahawks.
Number 6 Cardinals at number 3 Packers.
Packers.
I'll take the Packers.
And then you've got the number 5 Bucs at, I don't know how, the number 4 Eagles.
The reason they're number 4 is because they're a division winner, Mikey. There's nothing to do with quality there.
Crazy.
On the day now, slagging the Eagles who didn't play this week.
Bucs for me.
I've got to stick with my team. Go Eagles.
So now you've got...
I'm assuming Mikey picked the Bucs there.
Mikey's just picked the Bucs.
So now you've got the number 5 Bucs in the game that was so important this week at the New Orleans Saints now in the Dome.
I'm saying that the Bucs have sorted out their stupid decision making, and I think the Bucs win.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think they might come back.
I was going to say the Saints, but that's fine.
Doesn't matter.
And
You're
then
irrelevant now.
the Packers in Seattle.
I'm going Packers. I think the Seahawks will start to crumble.
I would go Packers. Yeah, I'd agree.
So the 1 and 2 seeds are out. So then that means that there's a NFC Championship game in Lambeau Field. Tom Brady's Bucs against Aaron Rodgers' Packers. Winner goes to the Super Bowl. That's what you want to see.
I think that Tom Brady's old brittle hands will get cold in Lambeau in the winter, and the Packs will win that.
Yeah, I think if this was in Tampa Bay, they would win it. But I think in Lambeau in the winter, hopefully it's a snow game. I'm going to take the Pack as well.
I agree. If it was in Tampa, I'd fancy Brady and the Bucs, but.
Okay, so we've got a new Super Bowl this week, two new teams. Oh no, I think the Chiefs made it last week. It's the Kansas City Chiefs against the Green Bay Packers.
Chiefs.
I'm going to say Packers since it's already going to be the Chiefs, just so you got support. So we've got Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl for the second week in a row.
Did we say Chiefs last week as well?
Yep, but we also said that if the Steelers got I think we said the Seahawks was going to beat it was going to be the Seahawks versus the Chiefs, and the Chiefs would win.
But the
Steelers,
yeah.
If the Steelers got to it, the Seahawks would beat them. I think was that what we said last week?
I think the same again in this way. If the Steelers managed to get there, I think the Packers would beat the Steelers.
Right.
Either way, we're not very high on the Steelers winning the Super Bowl if they get there.
No, I think they can get there, but I think the NFC have just got such quality teams that they'd probably beat the Steelers, in my opinion. Well, thank you for that game again, Mikey. But we can jump now onto a 2-minute warning, and we can have a look at the predictions from last week. Do I want to look at the predictions? I've not even had a look at it since I guessed them.
You do not want to look at the predictions.
All right, well, I'm going to go. See you later. Yeah, we could start the Thursday Night Football. I hope we all got that right.
Clean sweep for the Packers.
Good. Giants beat Washington.
Me and Kai had the Giants. Yeah, Adam, you had Washington.
2 all in Washington, haven't I? Tennessee beat Chicago.
Clean sweep for the Titans.
Good. Minnesota beat Detroit.
Kai had the Lions. Myself and Adam had the Vikings.
I'm still not sure why he ever had the Lions, but well. I'm
It's
sure
for the same reason that you always take the Colts.
that worked this week, didn't it? Right, Kansas City beat the Panthers.
Clean sweep for the Chiefs.
Yeah. The Texans beat the Jags.
Clean sweep for the Texans.
The Ravens beat the Colts.
Adam, you had the Colts.
Yeah.
See, I had the Ravens.
I thought maybe Baltimore would be struggling again, reeling from last week. Didn't happen.
I had to think about that one as well.
I don't think any of us picked Buffalo over Seattle.
Wrong clean sweep.
Yeah. Atlanta beat Denver.
Oh, I've got this wrong. Me and you, Adam, had the Falcons. Kai had the Broncos.
Did you pick the Broncos? Are you a fan of Drew Lock?
Like coming off last week.
I just think he's not a fan of the Falcons.
I can understand not being a fan
that's
of the Falcons.
probably as big a factor, but yeah, coming off the back of last week, I just thought the Broncos might have done something.
Yeah, well, they didn't. The Raiders beat the Chargers.
Adam, you had the Chargers. Me and Kai had the Raiders.
For a small amount of time, I had it, and then it was cruelly taken away from me. I hope we all said the Steelers would beat the Cowboys.
We did.
I'm assuming we all said that Arizona would beat Miami, and we were wrong. Yeah. New Orleans beat Tampa Bay.
I had the Saints. You two had the Bucs. I just thought that first game was going to hang over the Bucs, and I thought it was in the Dome. It was going to be a win.
And
it wasn't in the Dome. It was in Tampa Bay. But I thought they were going to win it regardless.
New England beat the Jets.
Clean sweep for the Patriots.
Fantastic. So how was it this week? Even with my poor predictions, I'm sure I'll still be as poorly in last as normal.
Scores for the week. We'll keep saying it every week, Adam. You're above 500. You got 7 out of 14.
Well, I mean, you called to 500. It's not quite above it, is it?
Kai was with 9 out of 14. And I think I've got a season best. I had 12 out of 14.
Goodness me. You must have been cheating somehow.
I think the only games I got wrong were the...
Sorry, I just used an explicit word.
Yeah, I realised that. I was trying to move
I can beep it out. I can beep it out in post-production, don't worry.
Seahawks and the Cardinals wrong. So that means overall, Adam is on 57 out of 101.
Including my bonus points?
Kai's on 65 out of 101. And I'm now one ahead on 66 out of 101.
I think every second week you're going to have to try and give me 5 bonus points to catch up with you.
Possibly, yeah. We'll think of a new game for you to play.
But yes. I love how we always finish.
Sorry, I've just realised, is this the first time you've gone ahead of me, Mikey?
No, there's been a few lead changes at the top. We've been even and then one ahead and one behind.
No, I mean, like, overall. I think you've won quite a few weeks.
No, this was
really?
We were leading for the last 2 weeks. And then it was level, and then I was leading the week maybe at the start, but it's been relatively close, give or take a point.
Between me, us two, Adams.
Yeah, of course. Adam, see, for 100 points, what does the L in the NFL stand for?
Loser? Oh, no, that's just me. But yeah, I love how we always finish on the predictions, and it always just brings me down because I'm not doing very well. That's I love you guys really for doing that.
Maybe we should start with it.
Maybe. Then it'd be a very long 2-minute warning at the end, wouldn't it, with all the games? That'd be... Yeah. But anyway, thank you for joining us again, Kai and Mikey, for another week review.
There's a game tonight.
There is a game tonight.
Yes,
we actually have to do a little prediction before we run away.
Colts at Titans.
You know who I'm going to pick.
Do you know what? I'm also going to go with the Colts potentially. Woo! I might change it before kickoff, but I'm going to Titans. I'm going to Titans. Who am I kidding?
I'm going Titans.
Yeah, I'm going Colts. I'm going for the upset. I need to start getting points that you aren't getting, so I'm going to have to go the opposite of you. So Colts for me and Titans for the two of you.
That only works if the Colts win.
Yeah,
you've done the opposite.
I go further behind. Yeah, exactly.
You go further behind.
But I look forward to watching that game and me going further behind the predictions probably. So. Thank you for joining us, gents. I'll pop this music on and we can say goodbye. See you later.
Cheerio.